Thank you so much, Mr. Secretary, for being here. The question is, who made the final call to cancel these projects, these grants? Was that the Energy Department? Was that the Budget Director, Russ Vought?
That's in the Energy Department. All those decisions are made in the Energy Department.
Okay, and so when obviously this came on the first day of the government shutdown, which made people raise the question, was this tied to the government shutting down?
No, our decisions have been made over the last few months. A team of 7 or 8 people have evaluated over 2,400 projects just on business conditions, whether it makes sense for the American taxpayers or not. So no, timing of announcements, I don't control that always, but these decisions are made all in the Energy Department, all based on facts.
Okay, well, I think people raise that question because it was announced technically by the Budget Director, Russ Vought, and then the Energy Department announcement came a couple of hours later. But you're saying it was not tied to the government shutdown here in Washington.
Yeah, this is evaluations we've had ongoing, and we release these periodically. We released some announcements a few months ago. We'll have many more coming this fall. Okay,
so whether Democrats vote to reopen the government is not going to change whether or not these projects are restored or the funding is changed or anything like that?
Huge amount of damage from the government shutting down the government. I don't want to elaborate how wide that goes, but it's not new. My department, think of the Department of Energy, we have over 20 people confirmed by the Senate. I had 2 of them in at the start of September. Democrats have been very obstructive in our mission at the Department of Energy and to lower energy costs and to make good decisions on projects. Shutting down the government certainly doesn't help either.
Yeah, but a big part of messaging from the White House has been, well, if these Senate Democrats don't want to feel this pain, then they should reopen the government. But you're saying that should they reopen the government tomorrow, for example, that the Department of Energy is not going to restore these contracts?
No, these decisions are made business decisions on whether it's a good use of the taxpayer money or not. So no, these projects will not be restored.
Typically, when a government contract is awarded, as you know, it's legally binding, paperwork is signed. Some people may look at this and say, how is this administration making decisions on canceling grants that have already been awarded as a result of a bipartisan law that was passed by members of both parties up on Capitol Hill?
So first of all of them have cancellation clauses. If they're not in the interest of the taxpayers, if they're not good expenditure of money, you always have the ability to cancel these projects. A lot of them also have milestones. A number of these companies have gone bankrupt. They failed in milestone 1. They still want to get funded in milestone 2, late in delivering paperwork. So there is a long list of problems with projects that get canceled. The majority of the projects we've reviewed have continued to get funded.
And do you intend to put out a complete list of every project in which state that you are canceling? Because I don't think we've seen a comprehensive one so far from the Department of Energy.
No, because the projects are still under review, and the projects, most of the decisions have not been released yet.
But how do people know?
At the end of the day, they'll all be released, of course.
What's your timeline for that? Because I think some people may say, well, is the one being canceled in my state, or what does this look like?
It's all in the next few weeks. This has been thousands of work hours to evaluate all of these projects. Just an incredible, irresponsible deployment of taxpayer money. Should American taxpayers really fund decarbonizing Uber Eats in San Francisco or building e-bike lanes in Portlandia? $600 million to further subsidize construction of unreliable, expensive electricity sources in California? California can do what it wants, but the 49 other states' taxpayers shouldn't be subsidizing that.
Well, it's a law that was appropriated by Congress. It's funding that was passed by Democrats and Republicans. But when people look at what was released, according to the Budget Director, where these contracts are being canceled, if you look back at the majority of the clean energy investments from the Biden era, they were actually done in states that Donald Trump won election in. But all of the contracts that we're told that are being canceled that were listed by the Budget Director are states that Kamala Harris won. So are you punishing only blue states?
Not at all. This is a partial list of an ongoing process. More project announcements will come.
Well, I ask because there's a hydrogen hub in the Pacific Northwest. They saw a huge grant being canceled, probably one of the biggest projects that you canceled so far. But there's other hydrogen hubs in Republican-controlled states like West Virginia, Texas, Louisiana. Those were not affected. Why was the one in the Pacific Northwest canceled, but not the ones in those Republican states?
The decisions on the others haven't been announced yet. That's just an evaluation that was made. They're announced as the evaluations get done.
Do you believe
California already has the most expensive electricity in the country by a factor of 2. Hydrogen, are they trying to get to a factor of 5? What's the agenda there? But all of the hydrogen hubs are being evaluated through the same critical lens.
Well, I think people might look at this and say, well, actually, my electricity bills, my utilities are going up. Is canceling all of these projects going to only make that worse?
No, quite the opposite. You put everything that's done to why has electricity prices gone up so much in the last 4 years? You could only permit wind, solar, and expensive transmission facilities that ultimately go into the rate base of ratepayers. So there's a lot of inertia, unfortunately, still in the electricity system. Everything we're doing is to reverse the upward pressure on electricity prices and drive downward pressure. You spend $1 billion on hydrogen, you're going to spend $1 billion of taxpayer money and then have more expensive energy bills afterwards.
So when it comes to those other hydrogen areas that I talked about in West Virginia, in Texas, and Louisiana, are you saying that those are on the table for cancellation potentially as well?
Oh, absolutely. All projects, 2,400 projects have been evaluated at the Department of Energy on grants.
And you're not only canceling ones in blue states, you're saying they just happen to all be in blue states so far?
They haven't all been in blue states so far.
Well, every state that Russ Vought listed in his tweet last night is a state that Kamala Harris won.
We've announced project cancellations before that in red and blue states. And as this fall goes on, you'll see cancellations in red and blue states. So we got to save Americans money.
You say this isn't tied to, well, Congress passed this money, of course, as you know, but you say this is not tied to the government shutdown, right?
These cancellation decisions, absolutely not tied to the government shutdown.
One thing we've seen the White House warn about during the shutdown is that there could be layoffs of federal workers, not just people being furloughed, but people being permanently laid off from their job. Have you been told by the budget director that that could happen at your department?
Everyone's in dialogues about what's the right thing to do. My biggest concern for sure is the Nuclear National Security Administration within my department. We have 8 days of funding left. This is what maintains the United States nuclear stockpile.
And what happens if you run out of money?
We have to go into an emergency shutdown program to keep a limited number of people to make sure our weapons are safe, but it's highly disruptive to our operations that we'd have to reassemble again. To me, it's just crazy. Look, a majority in the House of Representatives, bipartisan majority, a bipartisan majority in the Senate, both passed a simple, clean resolution to keep the government running. Yeah. Chuck Schumer is worried about his left flank and is willing to put at risk Americans' jobs in the country, to protect his own political future. What about Americans? What about our nuclear security?
The president said earlier he was going to be meeting with Director Vought to talk about what is going to be funded in these agencies if people are going to be laid off. He referred to them as Democrat agencies. Do you consider the Energy Department to be a Democrat agency?
No, look, the agencies have missions, but 92% of Washington, D.C. voted for Kamala Harris. So this is the most Democratic concentrated place in the United States by far.
But every agency is being run by a Trump-picked cabinet secretary,
100%.
Right?
100%. Now, the agencies are run by this administration. They're run by a different administration another time. But employees and agencies, are they dominantly Democrats? It's Washington, D.C. Of course they are. But we run the Energy Department for the interests of the American people. We have one agenda: drive down the price of energy in the United States, keep our nuclear stockpile safe, and create innovation and opportunity to drive our economy forward. That's my agenda 7 days a week. To have it interrupted right now, to have the Democrats drag their feet and not approve the people. Head of IBM Research left his job to come run the Undersecretary for Science in my department. He left his job in January. He only came in a week ago because the Democrats wouldn't confirm him. Crazy. Confirmed by bipartisan votes.
And have y'all had meetings here at the White House about what to do for your agencies going forward if the government shutdown continues?
Absolutely, there's contingent discussions going on. As you say, the more it goes, the more the ramifications are. We can't spend money that's not allocated.
Energy Secretary Chris Wright, thank you for your time.
Thanks for having me.